There are only 6 hours left before the apocalypse begins, and my daughter is still at kindergarten. I call the teacher. Could you please help Dudu pack up her things? I will come to pick her up right away. Then I open the app for grocery delivery and start frantically placing orders. The most terrifying thing about the apocalypse is not the zombies, but the human heart. I don't know how long I will live in this life. But I will do my utmost, for those I love. The elevator dinged, and I woke up with a start. I looked at the people entering and exiting the elevator in surprise. Just a moment ago, I was being bitten by a zombie. How could I now be standing in the elevator unharmed, as if I had returned to the time before the apocalypse? 3 minutes later, I confirmed that I had been reborn on the very day the apocalypse occurred. It is now 9 in the morning. 6 hours later, at 3 in the afternoon, the apocalypse will descend. I spent another minute to organize my thoughts. The first thing I did was to call my daughter Dudu's kindergarten and tell the teacher that I was going to pick her up. On my way to the kindergarten, I contacted my mother-in-law. Mom, please go to the supermarket quickly and buy as much rice and flour as you can. My mother-in-law asked on the phone, is the city going to be locked down again? Something like that. Hurry up, the sooner the better, but don't tell anyone else. I heard it from a small source. I couldn't explain. Understood, we won't spread rumors or make up stories. After hanging up, I called my brother Song Yuan, who is a senior in college in this city. You need to go to the farmer's market now and buy some shovels, hammers, and nails, as well as all kinds of vegetable seeds. Buy whatever you see. Song Yuan wailed on the other end. Sis, my thesis has a 45% similarity rate. I have to work on my thesis. Go right now, I'll reimburse you for the plagiarism check fee. Remember to buy the best quality, and come to my place by taxi after you buy them. Under my coercion and temptation, Song Yuan agreed. If the food we stock up on can't last until the rescue team arrives, we will definitely have to go out to find food, and these things are the best weapons. The next call was to my parents in my hometown. Because my father fell last month and his leg is not yet fully recovered, he definitely can't make it within 6 hours. Fortunately, they retired and went back to the countryside, where there is plenty of food, vegetables, and meat, and the house is also built solidly, which can last for a long time. Finally, I sent a message to my husband Lu Zheng, who is in the army. Honey, you must come to find me, Mom, Dudu, and I will do our best to wait for you. Upon arriving at the kindergarten, the teacher brought Dudu out. Mom, why do you miss me so quickly? Dudu threw herself into my arms and asked. Yes, Mom misses my little darling. After 2 whole years, holding my daughter's small body again, I couldn't help but shed tears. Dudu's mom, what's wrong? The teacher asked worriedly. I lifted Dudu up in my arms. I'm fine, thank you, Teacher Ju, we'll leave now, take care of yourself. Although I knew the apocalypse was imminent, I couldn't tell anyone, I could only say to take care. On the way back in the car, I didn't waste a minute using the instant grocery app to place orders. Perishable vegetables and frozen foods were not on my list, as the power would go out soon after the start of the apocalypse, and these foods couldn't be preserved. Ham sausages, vacuum-packed food, cured meats, radishes, potatoes, seaweed, these are what can be stored for a long time. I didn't choose home delivery but had them placed at the entrance of the community. Such a large quantity might arouse suspicion, and when the food crisis comes, there will surely be people to rob. I went back and forth to the supermarket several times to move the water back, and when I got home, my mother-in-law had also returned with 2 bags of rice and flour and a barrel of oil, tired and beating her back. Lan, do you think this is enough? Not enough, far from enough, we still need to keep buying. Mom, you stay at home and take care of Dudu, I'm going out. I found the small cart for buying groceries and went out the door. It's now 9:45 in the morning, I have to hurry up. There is a supermarket at the entrance of the community, and I was moving boxes of water to the car. For the city, a power outage means a water outage, especially for those living in high-rise buildings. They might die of thirst before they starve, and in the end, even if there is still food, they have to go out to find water and most end up dying at the hands of zombies. I made several trips to the supermarket to move the water back, and when I got home, Song Yuan had already arrived. The shovels and hammers he bought were of good quality, and he also bought a lot of vegetable seeds. I finally felt a bit more at ease. Sis, why did you buy so many things? People who don't know might think the apocalypse is coming. Don't talk nonsense. Go and move the things at the community entrance to our home. I still didn't explain, even if he is my own brother. At this time, saying anything is a waste of time. Just use bloodline suppression. At 12 o'clock, there were only 3 hours left until the apocalypse. As I pushed the cart past the community gate, the young security guard greeted me with a smile. You've almost emptied the supermarket this morning. There were also 2 or 3 residents around me, looking at me. I knew I had been noticed. Although they were just curious, in the apocalypse, this kind of attention could be fatal. In the apocalypse, the most terrifying thing is not the zombies, but the human heart. I'm going on a business trip for a while, and the elderly at home can't buy things, so I'm stocking up, I made up a reason casually. The security guard didn't ask any more questions, and I knew I had to change to another supermarket and enter and exit from another gate of the community. I called Song Yuan to drive to a larger supermarket a bit further away. After arriving, I let Song Yuan park the car, and I went straight to the clothing section. Underwear, socks, and other personal clothing, I took as much as I could. Once the water stops, it will be difficult to wash clothes, so I can only have more in reserve. There are also waterproof jackets. I took a set for each of us according to our sizes. The climate was abnormal in the second year of the apocalypse. It rained almost every day. If our food runs out at that time, we will have to go out to find supplies. High-power flashlights, batteries of various types, I packed them up. If there were solar panels, it would be even better, but this supermarket didn't have them. Fuel is the most needed. Soon after the apocalypse, natural gas will be out of use, and we can only rely on these solid and canned fuels to cook. I also took a year's supply of sanitary pads, and toothpaste. Toothbrushes are indispensable. If these basic hygiene is not done well, once it causes disease, it will be unbearable. When Song Yuan came to find me and saw the 3 carts full of things, he widened his eyes. Sister, what's going on? I looked at the time. You will know in 2.5 hours. At 2 o'clock, the apocalypse countdown began. I went out for the last time to the pharmacy, took medicine for colds and fever, anti-infection medicine, medical alcohol gauze iodine, and various vitamin supplements. I took them all. Hello, a total of 4,503. The clerk's face was full of laughter. She could get a lot of commission from this order. Thank you for coming. See you next time, she said happily. I looked at her young and energetic smile and couldn't help but be moved. Goodbye. At 2:59. I lulled Dudu to sleep, closed the windows, and drew the curtains. My mother-in-law was organizing the supplies in the living room. Oh my, we can't finish all this in a year. This must have cost a lot, right? I walked to the window and looked downstairs without saying a word. If I had more time, I could have bought a generator, enough fuel, solar panels, a rainwater collection and filtration system, and even guns. But I only had 6 hours and had to ensure the survival supplies first. At 3 o'clock sharp. A few shrill screams came from downstairs. Someone was running desperately, but was knocked down by a bloody person before they could take a few steps. Those people were terrifyingly biting the living people below, like beasts. The security guard patrolling the community wanted to make an emergency call in horror, but the next second he was overwhelmed by countless living dead. The apocalypse came as scheduled, not a minute or a second late. Those who were bitten to death slowly stood up, their heads drooping, their bodies walking forward like puppets on strings, and when they encountered the living, they pounced brutally. The screams filled the entire community, and the air was full of the smell of blood. My God! My mother-in-law fainted after seeing this with a scream. Song Yuan's voice was trembling. Sister, you bought so many things because of this. Yes, the apocalypse has come. I helped my mother-in-law to the sofa, and after she recovered, I told them about my rebirth. In the last life, Dudu, my mother-in-law, and Song Yuan were all infected and became zombies in the early stage, and I escaped because I was driving at that time. My mother-in-law has been crying. The old man has never seen such a terrible thing, and is worried about her son in the army and our family. Mom, Lu Zheng, and they are well equipped. He will be fine. In the last life, I met Lu Zheng in a safe area a year after the apocalypse. But we can't always be together. He is a soldier. Protecting the safety of people's lives is his duty. He fights on the front line every day. Later, when he was on a mission, the safe area was hit by a zombie tide. Although we fought desperately, the safe area was still occupied. I was reborn. I don't know what the fate of others is. 10 minutes later, the news began to be broadcast on TV. The police, firefighters, and armed police quickly took action, and the government reminded everyone to stay at home and never go out. I made a video call to my parents in my hometown. Lan, you must not go out, something big has happened. My parents were very worried about us. I know, Mom and Dad, you also protect yourself. I felt distressed, although I knew that my parents would live well in another safe area later, but I still miss them very much. Girl, don't cry, Yuan, you are a man, you must protect your sister and Dudu and your mother well, understand? My father solemnly instructed Song Yuan. Although Song Yuan is still in a state of shock, he still holds the hammer in his hand tightly. Mom and Dad, you can rest assured, I will, you also have to take care. Gunshots began to sporadically echo outside. It was the police firing, but I knew this level of firepower would do nothing to control the situation. On this day, the virus erupted globally, and no one knew how it appeared or why it spread simultaneously across the world. Even at the time of my death, this remained an unsolved mystery. Some say it's divine retribution, a cleansing of humanity by the heavens. Dudu was awakened by the noise outside and started crying in fear. I held her in my arms and gently coaxed, Don't be afraid, Mommy's here. The little girl curled up in my arms and gradually stopped crying. Never let the child see what's outside, said my mother-in-law, pulling the curtains tightly shut. But she will have to accept all this sooner or later, I thought. Flowers in a greenhouse cannot withstand the cold of nature. I won't blind Dudu to this cruel world. After Dudu calmed down, I checked the doors and windows and began to organize the supplies. Song Yuan helped me, while the frightened mother-in-law stayed in the bedroom with Dudu. About half an hour later, there were chaotic footsteps outside the door. I immediately picked up a shovel and stood by the door, with Song Yuan following nervously behind me, holding a hammer. Wife, open the door, hurry up and open the door. It was the voice of our neighbor, Sister Ju's husband. I looked through the peephole and saw that the man's clothes were torn, with several wounds on his arm, some deep enough to see the bone. He was infected and would soon turn into a zombie. Do not open it, I immediately shouted to stop, but it was too late. Click, the door was opened, and the man rushed in. Soon after, Sister Ju's terrifying screams and the sound of a beast swallowing came from inside. I've seen such scenes many times before, but Song Yuan was experiencing it for the first time. His face was pale, but he didn't run away, always staying by my side. The little tail that followed me when I was young is now also my support. I didn't hesitate to open the door and walked over. While Sister Ju hadn't turned into a zombie yet, it was time to deal with them to avoid endless trouble. Sis, Song Yuan grabbed me in fear. It's okay, I know what I'm doing, I said. I used to be pampered by my parents and loved by my husband, unable to carry or lift anything. But after 2 years of struggling in the apocalypse, I, who used to cry at the slightest problem, now had the courage and strength to kill zombies. I went in and saw the usually friendly couple covered in blood, their bodies torn apart. The man's grey eyes looked towards me. The scent of the living would make zombies keep attacking. Only a shattered skull could stop their actions. As he was about to pounce on me, I swiftly crushed his head, then dealt with Sister Ju who was in the process of transformation, and then came out and closed the door. Song Yuan looked at me in shock at the door. I walked past him and closed the fire door in the stairwell to prevent zombies from other floors from coming in. We went back home, closed the door, and propped it with heavy objects. From now on, before the food and water run out, we would not step out of the door easily. Song Yuan sat on the sofa without saying a word, obviously frightened by my ruthlessness in killing zombies just now. After all, in his heart, I have always been a delicate and timid sister. Don't be afraid of me, I will never hurt you, I said to him. Song Yuan hugged me and shook his head. Sister, I'm not afraid of you, I just can't imagine what you've been through. I patted his back. It's just a nightmare. At night, the city was ablaze, and some areas had already started to lose power. The sirens stopped wailing, the gunfire ceased, and the streets were filled with aimlessly wandering zombies. Our community still had electricity. I lifted the curtain and looked out at the community. Half of the community still had lights on, and from time to time, heart-wrenching cries came through. Today is a working day, with people going to work and school, but many will never return home. The government in the news kept encouraging everyone to hold on and wait for rescue. I checked my phone messages over and over, just like in the last life, Lu Zheng was still out of contact. That night, I filled all the containers in the house with water, and the phone and power banks were also fully charged. Song Yuan kept watch, and Dudu, my mother-in-law, and I rested first. But none of us could sleep, waiting for the arrival of the next day in the darkness. The second day of the apocalypse. I woke up early and let Song Yuan rest. The water and electricity have not been cut off yet, and the gas is still usable, but it's uncertain how long it will last. After making breakfast, I ate a little and then checked the information online. The short videos were all about zombies eating people, and there were even some daring people live streaming. I was looking for news about the rescue team entering the city, but as in the last life, they did not appear. This is not because they are slow to act, but because many of the combat personnel were also infected and turned into zombies in the early stages. The government also tried to use large-scale thermal weapons to clear the zombies, but the result was that even if many were killed, as long as one zombie still existed, a large area would be infected again in a short time. In the end, the command center gave up on the rescue and concentrated all its efforts on building a safe zone to provide shelter for the survivors. At 10 in the morning. There were several armed helicopters flying in the sky, their machine guns spitting fire and killing zombies on the ground. After running out of bullets, the planes flew away and never came back. They may have also realized that zombies can't be killed completely. The downstairs of the community has long lost the hustle and bustle of yesterday, with dozens of zombies wandering below, and no living person in sight. I took advantage of the fact that the water has not been cut off to plant the seeds. Radishes and cabbages grow quickly, and you can eat the tender seedlings in about 20 days, while other vegetables like cucumbers, peppers, and eggplants will take longer. When I bought the house, I was immediately attracted to this 28th floor penthouse with a terrace. It is said that the penthouse has problems with water leakage, low water pressure, and the inconvenience of waiting for the elevator, but I like the sunshine and fresh air. At that time, I planned to plant a gorgeous garden waiting for Lu Zheng to come back, and never thought that one day it would be used as a vegetable garden. My mother-in-law and Dudu also came to help. I told Dudu not to speak loudly, and Dudu also sensibly did as told. She curiously looked at the zombies walking downstairs. Mom, why don't they go home? In the eyes of children, they don't know what life and death are. I touched her head. Because they have a very serious infectious disease, they can't go home. If you see such patients in the future, you must hide immediately and not be infected, otherwise, you can't go home either, understand? Dudu nodded. I understand. In the evening, my parents called on the video phone, and they also breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that we were still alive. I'm going to modify the car at home and take your mother to find you, my father said seriously. Absolutely not, Dad, there will be a safe zone built where you are, you should stay where you are. How do you know? I had to briefly explain the matter of my rebirth, but my father didn't believe it at all, firmly believing that it was Lu Zheng who leaked the news to me. But after a lot of persuasion, he finally gave up the idea of coming to find us. The third day of the apocalypse, the power went out. Wi-Fi is down, and we can only use mobile data. Lu Zheng still hasn't replied to the messages. I continue to leave him messages explaining our situation here, telling him that we will hold out at home for about a year. If there is no rescue by then, we will head east to find a safe zone. A safe zone will be built in the east after a year, with full security, and setting out then can save us a lot of detours. In the last life, he didn't see the messages I left for him due to communication failures, and it's likely the same this time. But my real purpose is not just to express my feelings. I have other purposes for these messages, hoping they will be useful in the future if there is one. Dudu wants to eat a poached egg, and my mother-in-law is busy in the kitchen. Song Yuan is observing the situation outside, and I'm so tired from staying up all night that I go back to my room to catch up on sleep. When I wake up, it's already 3 in the afternoon. Dudu is drawing in the living room, and my mother-in-law is still in the kitchen, with the aroma of stewed meat wafting out. I immediately rush over and turn off the fire. Mom, don't cook anything so fragrant, it will be smelled by others. My mother-in-law looks at me in surprise. So what if it's smelled? People always have to eat, and with the power out, this meat will go bad if not eaten quickly. It's okay now, but later when someone is too hungry, we will be in danger. I have seen with my own eyes that desperate people can be more terrifying than zombies. They will use all means to rob food. At that time, morality and law are worthless, and the evil side of human nature is exposed. Those bad memories make my body tremble involuntarily. I think I should have post-traumatic stress disorder. My mother-in-law also understood, and touched my face with her warm hand. My child, how much have you suffered? I gradually calmed down and smiled at my mother-in-law. It's okay, it's all in the past. Although I may face all that again in the future, I am not afraid anymore. Family is my source of strength. There are many more zombies in the community, and it has become a kingdom of zombies. The fourth day of the apocalypse, the water was cut off. We started to stop bathing and only wipe our bodies with clean water. We use the simple toilet we bought, and collect feces and garbage for centralized treatment. The weather is getting hot, and the air is full of the smell of decay. Soon, the plague will also break out, and many people who survived the first day will gradually die of disease. We wear masks, spray disinfectant at home, and from today, we take vitamins every day and exercise to improve immunity and try not to get sick. The fifth day of the apocalypse, the mobile phone signal became intermittent, and by the evening, there was no signal at all, and we lost contact with the outside world. The sixth day of the apocalypse, a large number of rescue personnel appeared on the other side of the river, but when crossing the bridge, they were blocked by tens of thousands of zombies. In the end, they had to blow up the bridge to withdraw. I was holding Dudu on the terrace, watching all this, with thick smoke rolling. Dudu asked me, Mom, is it Dad coming to save us? I nodded. Although Lu Zheng was not in it, they went to a more severe place at that time. I just want Dudu to be full of hope. After all, we still have a year to endure. The seventh day of the apocalypse, there was no gas either. In the morning, I was awakened by the sound of a car driving, and when I opened the curtain, I saw a black sedan crushing zombies all the way to the supermarket door. A man dressed in tight clothes got out of the car and ran into the supermarket. After a while, he came out with a few cans of milk powder. He was very fast, like a sprinter, but the zombies that came at the sound still surrounded and overwhelmed him. When the zombie group dispersed, there were only a few cans of milk powder stained with blood left on the ground. Adults can endure hunger, but babies can't. Children are the apple of their parents' eyes. For the children to live, parents are willing to take risks even knowing they might die. Many people are also watching that man like me, and the scene just now has made many people who want to go to the supermarket to move food change their minds. I'm glad I became a zombie early in the last life, Song Yuan sighed. I replied, in this life, you won't get your wish. Suddenly, there was the sound of a drone nearby, and I immediately pulled Song Yuan back into the house. The drone was hovering in the community, and someone was observing the situation in the community. After circling around, it flew away. I looked at the direction it landed, which was in our community. I didn't sleep all night, and I felt that something was going to happen soon. The 10th day of the apocalypse brought heavy rain. The four of us moved all the basins, buckets, and even pots and bowls to collect rainwater. I made a simple filter with small stones, soil, and gauze that I had previously used for the garden to filter the water, which could then be used for washing and cooking. The cabbage and radishes planted on the terrace are already 3 to 4 centimeters tall, and this rain will greatly speed up their growth. The rain stopped in the afternoon, and the smell of decay also eased a bit. We have been living with masks on for a while, and today we can finally take them off and breathe fresh air. Song Yuan and I were filtering water, Dudu was playing with a little snail, and my mother-in-law was busy preparing dinner. Everything seemed to have returned to the warm and harmonious days 10 days ago. Now that the gas has been cut off, we can only cook with the fuel we bought before, and to save fuel, the meals are also very simple, basically just a little oil and boiling. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a master in cooking, and even with such a simple method, she can make the food delicious. However, the sound of the drone came again, and this time it was equipped with a small loudspeaker, from which a woman's voice said, "Who has extra food? I am willing to exchange it for Hermes." Someone else opened the window and said, "I am willing to exchange it for a Mercedes. I have an apartment in this community, I am willing to exchange it for a house, just a bag of rice is enough." No one answered them, now everyone knows that food is the most precious. The drone flew back, and soon there was the sound of smashing, and some people began to pry doors open. A couple was rummaging in the house, but they were looking for unoccupied houses. With their lead, others also started to follow suit, and the community was filled with the sounds of doors being smashed and things being rummaged through. There was also a lot of noise in our building, it seems there are quite a few people. Now, due to the access control, zombies can't get in for the time being, but it's uncertain how long it can last. Soon I heard people opening the fire door on my floor, they wanted to come to this floor to search for things. The fire door is airtight and sturdy, and I have blocked it with things, so it's not easy for them to get in. There must be people in our building, I smelled the smell of stewed meat a few days ago, a man's voice came. Damn it, why is this door so sturdy? Another man was ramming the door. On the day the virus broke out, I saw a woman buying a lot of things and transporting them in carts, and now it seems to be from our building, maybe it's the top floor. There seemed to be only 2 women and a child in this family, no men. I was indeed seen, I held the shovel tightly in my hand, and if they broke in, I would fight desperately. Their voices attracted the zombies downstairs, who rushed to the access control one after another, and the 2 men had to leave first and hide in the house. After they left, my mother-in-law blamed herself, I shouldn't have stewed meat that day. I comforted, it's okay, it's all in the past, the apocalypse has a lot of uncertainties. Because of the appearance of those 2 people, my mother-in-law and Song Yuan both started to strengthen their exercise, in case someone comes to rob things they can resist. Especially my mother-in-law, a strong woman all her life, at the age of 60, she is still holding a kitchen knife and practicing, vowing to protect us. I am accompanying Dudu to draw and read stories, I want to make up for the 2 years of lost time. After this search, the community was quiet for a while. The survivors I met in the last life told me that at first everyone was afraid of zombies and dared not do anything, but later when they were extremely hungry and thirsty, they just let go. The 20th day of the apocalypse. Many people hung cloths with SOS written on them outside their windows. After so many days, even if there is still food, water must be running out. I checked the water in our home, and due to cooking and the hot weather, we have consumed a lot, and now there are still 24 boxes of mineral water left. The previously filtered rainwater is left in 1 barrel, and if we use it sparingly, it should last for 2 to 3 months. At that time, the rainy season will come, and the difficulty of using water will be alleviated. At 4 in the afternoon, a rescue helicopter dropped supplies to the buildings with SOS signs, and the government has not given up and is actively rescuing. The survivors cheered, but then fought each other for more water and food. For the next 3 days, the helicopter came every day, and because it flew low, I could see the pilot. Everyone, don't be afraid. As long as I and my comrades are alive for a day, we will definitely bring you food, the pilot reassured everyone. By the sound, it was a very young girl, who seemed to be a few years younger than me, with a firm sense of responsibility and belief in her tone. But after that day, she and her plane never appeared again. Mom, why didn't the sister come today? Dudu looked at the sky with anticipation. She might have gone to another place, a paradise without zombies. The 30th day of the apocalypse. The cabbage seedlings we planted can now be used for stir-frying, and the radish sprouts can be blanched with boiling water and served cold, which won't produce too much smoke, and we finally have green vegetables to eat. Many people's food and drinking water have reached their limits, and for survival, they take risks to go to the supermarket to find supplies. Some people die, and some successfully bring back supplies, but the food in the supermarket is limited and won't last long. Some people drove away to look for a chance of survival. I watched some people just as they drove out of the garage. They were surrounded by a tide of zombies. Others broke through layers of obstacles and successfully left the zombies behind, rushing towards the distant hope. The 50th day of the apocalypse. It finally rained, although it was just a light rain. We carefully caught the rainwater with basins and buckets. During this period, I made a rainwater collector using mineral water bottles, which could speed up the collection of rainwater. Song Yuan's hair has grown quite long, and my mother-in-law is cutting his hair with scissors. Halfway through the haircut, the fire door in the stairwell was banged again. Those people were coming. Open the door. I know there are people on your floor. Hiding, right? When I get in, I'll kill them all. If they are willing to share food with us, don't kill them. It was a woman's voice. Immediately after, I heard a heavy slap. Shut up. The woman seemed to have been knocked down the stairs and then there was no sound from her. Dudu was so scared that she hid in my arms. My mother-in-law and Song Yuan both picked up weapons and stared at the door tightly. I gave up the usual shovel and turned to the kitchen to take a filleting knife. With a loud bang, the fire door was knocked open, and soon the corridor door was also knocked open, and the chaotic footsteps rushed into the corridor. I signaled my mother-in-law and Song Yuan not to make a sound. There should be 3 or 4 people by the sound of footsteps. They first smashed the door of the neighbor's house. When the door was smashed open, a foul smell came out, followed by their screams, which should have been scared by the bodies of the couple next door. They thought there were zombies on this floor and fled wildly downstairs, which attracted the attention of the zombies downstairs. The access control was knocked open, and the zombies swarmed in one after another. I heard the screams of those people, and in less than 10 seconds, only the low howls of the zombies were left. Once the zombies bite those people to death, they will come to attack us. Now the fire door is broken, and it's too late to repair it. I immediately took some clothes, cut open my palm, and dripped blood on them, then wrapped several heavy objects inside and threw them downstairs. The zombies that smelled the blood were indeed attracted out. Mom, if you see the zombies coming up, you continue to throw clothes. After the arrangement, I took 2 shovels and a lock of an electric car to check the damage of the fire door, and Song Yuan was on guard beside me. God bless me, although the fire door was knocked open, the door frame was not broken, and the door panel could still be closed, only the lock was broken. I saw a woman lying on the steps, dying, thin as a skeleton. In my memory, she seemed to be the mother of Dudu's classmate. Song Yuan, come and help quickly. We lifted her up and then used a shovel to wedge the fire door and locked another door with the lock of the electric car. These current measures are definitely not comparable to the original door, but they can hold on for a while. After returning home, we moved the cabinet and table to prop the door, and after waiting for a while, we didn't see the zombies coming up, and then we breathed a sigh of relief. The woman woke up at this time, but I could see that she didn't have much time left. I fed her some sugar water, and her pale face regained a bit of color. I offered her some noodles, but she shook her head. You keep it, don't waste it, I'm done for. Then she looked at me. I'm sorry, we were going to harm you, but you saved me instead. I sighed. You didn't hurt me, no need to apologize. She looked at Dudu. Dudu, do you remember me? I'm Yarrow Yarrow's mom. Dudu nodded. Hello, auntie. What was Yarrow Yarrow doing the last day you left? Dudu thought carefully. Drinking milk. Drinking milk, that's good. She smiled, but a tear rolled down her cheek. She left in the early morning, jumping off the terrace while we were asleep. I can understand her actions. At the beginning of the apocalypse, when I saw on my phone's monitor that Dudu had been infected and turned into a zombie, I also planned to follow her. Because of the heat, my wound became inflamed, leading to a low fever. After taking some anti-inflammatory medication, I fell into a daze for 2 days. When I woke up, Song Yuan told me that according to his observation, there were no other living people in the entire community besides us. But we still spoke softly, trying not to make noise, neither attracting zombies nor drawing the attention of others. The 120th day of the apocalypse. We still have 2/3 of our food left, and the vegetables are keeping up. The only trouble is still the shortage of water. The rainy season we were expecting did not come, and something seems to be quietly changing. But fortunately, apart from my infection and fever, the rest of the time, the 4 of us have been very healthy and have not had any illnesses. The 200th day of the apocalypse, snow began to fall from the sky, and the drinking water crisis was temporarily resolved. But it was January in the last life when it snowed, and this life it was 2 months earlier. We have no heating, and can only bundle up and shiver to keep warm. Today is also Lu Zheng's 32nd birthday. Early in the morning, my mother-in-law was silently missing Lu Zheng with his photo in her hand. I sat down next to her. In the photo, Lu Zheng has a straight and upright appearance, full of integrity. He is the person I am most familiar with and closest to, the farthest from me, and also the support for me to survive when I was most desperate. Can we really see Zheng next May? My mother-in-law asked me. I nodded. We can. If there are no accidents along the way. In the last life, I didn't arrive at the safe zone until July, and the safe zone had basically been completed in May, with elite garrisons and hundreds of thousands of survivors living inside. There are more than 300 such safe zones nationwide, which greatly preserve the living forces of humanity. Since the safe zone is being built, why don't we go now and meet my brother-in-law when we get there? Song Yuan asked me. I looked at the heavy snow outside. In this weather, if the car breaks down, we are likely to freeze to death. The 295th day of the apocalypse was the Lunar New Year. From the first snowfall to the present, over the past 3 months, the snow has hardly stopped, and the cold weather has greatly reduced the smell of decay, and the movement of the zombies has also slowed down, standing still in the snow like sculptures. Although our food is less than 1/3 left, we decided to indulge today for the New Year celebration. We stir-fried a large plate of green pepper and cured meat, unpacked the vacuum-packed braised duck, made a soup with seaweed, and then opened the last bottle of cola to celebrate. Happy New Year, we toasted quietly, celebrating that we were still alive. Just after we cleaned up from the New Year's Eve dinner, we heard the sound of cars outside, along with gunshots and explosions. Looking out the window, I saw 7 or 8 modified and reinforced cars parked at the entrance of the supermarket. Some people were shooting to block the zombies, and some rushed into the supermarket to look for supplies. They have guns, but they don't look like soldiers, Song Yuan said warily. I saw at a glance that they were not. The vehicles, weapons, and equipment were not the military's configuration. They should be groups of survivors who have organized themselves for survival, and as for the guns and ammunition, they may have been privately stored before the end of the world, or they may have been picked up or made after the end of the world. These people are very dangerous. After searching the supermarket, they found only a small amount of supplies and sat in the car cursing and shouting. Some people looked over here and whispered, our community is the closest to the supermarket, perhaps they think we still have supplies here. The car came over, they searched from one building to another, and soon arrived at our building. My heart was in my throat. The access control is broken, every household has been smashed, the rice bags are cleaner than the face, it seems that someone came before us, let's go, the next building. A group of people left in a grand manner, we escaped a disaster. If they had found us, even if they didn't kill us, without food and water, it would be difficult for us to survive. The access control issue that I was most worried about at the time has now saved our lives. The 330th day of the apocalypse, the peach blossoms in the community bloomed, a blazing expanse. The rescue team has never appeared, and we began to prepare to go to the safe zone. The most important thing to go to the safe zone is the vehicle and gasoline. Song Yuan and I went to the underground garage to check the vehicle first, and the vehicle was fine. As for the fuel, I used the soft tube that was used to water the flowers to suck the oil from other cars into large mineral water bottles for storage. Although the quality of the oil has not been good for such a long time, it can be used reluctantly. During this time, there were a few zombies in the underground garage, but they were all solved by me and Song Yuan. Song Yuan killed the zombie for the first time and vomited for a long time before he could recover. The 335th day of the apocalypse, sunny. We took all the water, food, medicine, and weapons, took a last look at this home, and left to go to another life and death bet. I know that even if we arrive at the safe zone safely, there will be a shocking wave of zombies waiting for us, but I will do everything to change the outcome of the last life. If I fail, I have seen the people I love, my daughter has seen her father, and my mother-in-law has seen her son. Our family can reunite and then go to death, which is also the best arrangement from God. The abandoned vehicles on the road blocked our way, but now we don't have to follow the traffic rules or care about public facilities. I drove straight out. The zombies who heard the movement chased behind the car, but I quickly left them behind. The route of going forward is based on my memory of the last life's escape on the map. Although going to the safe zone in the east on the highway is the fastest, there must be abandoned vehicles on it, and the roadsides are desolate, making it difficult to move forward, so I chose to take the national highway. But now the most difficult thing is to leave the city. There are the most abandoned cars in the city, and the zombies are also concentrated. I followed the route that those armed people left last time. Since their cars can leave, ours must be able to. Sure enough, my speculation was correct, and those people had opened a road. The city is empty and terrifyingly quiet, with human bones and garbage scattered everywhere. The originally spacious and tidy roads have grown weeds, and there are wild animals from time to time. Zombies have become very few because there are not many people living in the city. Zombies only chase the breath of the living, and the place with the most living people is the safe zone, which is also the reason for the formation of the zombie tide. The zombies nearby chased and besieged our vehicles, and I stepped on the accelerator and ran over their bodies. 2 hours later, we finally left the city without any danger. There is much more open space outside the city, and the view is also broader, with flowers all over the mountains. I can't help but think of a poem. It's already 100 feet of ice on the cliff, only the flower branches are pretty. We travel during the day and rest at night, and Song Yuan and I take turns on duty. But even so, the distance that should have been out of the province in 5 or 6 hours took us 4 days because many sections were blocked by vehicles, causing us to take a lot of detours. On the third day after departure, the sky began to rain, and we relied on the compass on Song Yuan's watch to determine the direction and continue moving forward. The more you go east, the more mountains there are, especially after passing through the Ganchi area. The continuous mountains are invisible, and the lush trees are like a light gauze under the smoke and rain of the south of the Yangtze River. There are very few zombies in this area, and there are not many abandoned vehicles on the road. We drive quietly on the road, as if passing through a paradise. When we arrived at a gas station, we stopped. The oil we brought out was almost exhausted, and there were not many vehicles on the road to find oil, so we could only rely on the gas station. The glass of this gas station is broken all over the floor, and the supplies on the shelves have been looted, and there are footprints on the ground, which should have been visited by someone recently. Is there any oil? Song Yuan asked. I shook my head and went to the oil unloading place to open the manhole cover. This is where the oil tank is located, and there may still be oil in the tank. This is the experience I learned from the teammates who worked at the gas station in the last life. Song Yuan and I took a lot of effort to open the oil valve, then put the soft tube in, and I took a hard suck. The brown liquid came up along the soft tube, and there was indeed oil. When we were receiving the oil, my mother-in-law took Dudu out of the car. Mom, you go back to the car quickly, I said quickly. Although there are not many zombies seen here, we can't be careless. My mother-in-law held Dudu. Dudu is so dizzy from the car that she vomited. I'll take her down for a breath. I went over and took the child. The little girl's face was very pale. There are many winding roads here. We adults can bear it, but it's hard for the child to bear. Then go to the gas station to rest for a while. As soon as we left the car, we heard a rustling on the mountain, and a few stones rolled down and hit the car, causing a landslide on the mountain due to continuous rain for several days. If my mother-in-law hadn't taken Dudu down, I couldn't imagine the consequences. Oh, my dear granddaughter saved our lives, thanks to the mountain god's protection, and thanks to the Bodhisattva's blessing. My mother-in-law knelt on the ground and piously kowtowed to the big mountain. I looked at the silent empty mountain, and the white mountains also looked down at me. Perhaps all of this is really destined. The car was destroyed, and we could only go on foot. I anticipated that the car would break down, but I didn't expect this kind of failure. I checked the supplies, and there was about a week's worth of food, but walking would consume a lot of physical strength and might eat faster. Song Yuan found a handcart from the gas station, and we put Dudu and some supplies in it, then put on the cold-proof jacket and then the raincoat. In the last life, this rain lasted for about half a year. After walking for 3 days, we finally saw a sign indicating that Dongjiang is 100 kilometers away. After arriving at Dongjiang, it is very close to the safe zone, but this also indicates that there will be more and more zombies. We still need to find a car. Along the way, I've seen many vehicles that are damaged and can't be started, so I'm going to look for one in the village. Maybe there's one that can be used. However, as soon as we entered the village, we saw signs of human activity, and we immediately retreated, but we were still discovered. More than 20 men and women surrounded us, armed with guns and knives. Our food, gasoline, raincoats, and jackets, as well as shovels and hammers, were all taken away. They didn't kill us, but they also didn't allow us to stay in the village, leaving us to fend for ourselves. In such a harsh environment, we would definitely not survive for long after losing everything. You won't be able to hold out here for long either. How about we make an exchange? I said to the leading man. The man looked at me disdainfully. What do you have to exchange? I took out Lu Zheng's photo. My husband is a soldier. He contacted me saying that they are now building a safe zone with ample supplies. I can take you to that place, but the condition is that you must ensure our safety. The man was very cautious. Communication has long been interrupted. Why should I believe you? I replied, although communication has been interrupted, the radio still works. I contacted my husband with the car radio, but my car was smashed at the gas station due to a landslide, otherwise I could give you proof. I was lying to them, but I was not entirely lying. One of the ways to notify survivors to take refuge after the safe zone was built was through radio broadcasts, but this step has not yet started. Captain, don't believe her words. She is very likely to have accomplices. We can't afford to make the same mistakes we made before. His companions said, and among these people, I heard a familiar male voice. Following the sound, I looked and saw that it was the gas station employee from the last life. Jong-yu, it's great to see you here. I looked at him in surprise. Although this 22-year-old boy has a bit of a temper, he is not bad-hearted. Jong-yu was stunned. You know me? I replied, I often refuel at your place before the virus outbreak, you forgot. I remember you are from the gas station on Qingyan Road, right? You often give me mineral water. This is my daughter Dudu. Do you remember? In fact, I didn't know Jong-yu at the beginning of the last life. This information was all told to me after we became teammates. Uncle. Dudu called out cautiously. Seeing that I could accurately state his information, Jong-yu's eyes gradually became less alert. The people around heard Dudu's voice and couldn't help but be moved. Many of them are also parents, and now their children are mostly gone. Seeing Dudu will also evoke emotions. I took the opportunity. Please believe me, I will never harm you. If I don't take you to the safe zone, you can do whatever you want to me then. Captain, let's believe her once. Anyway, we are not afraid of the number of people now. Jong-yu finally stood on my side. The man looked at the photo in my hand again. Is your husband really a soldier? I swear to God. I raised my hand. My son is a dignified soldier, and I also swear to God. My mother-in-law also raised her hand. The man pondered for a while and said, then I believe you once, you'd better not deceive me. After a night of rest, we set out early in the morning. The clothes that had been taken from us were returned, but the food was divided and eaten by everyone, who were clearly famished. Fortunately, they had a vehicle and fuel, so the journey ahead would be much faster. Before setting out, the team leader had several zombies killed and smeared their blood on the vehicles. He said it would help mask the scent of the living. The convoy set off under my guidance. Our family of 4 was asked to sit separately. Dudu and I were in the team leader's vehicle, while my mother-in-law and Song Yuan were with Jong-yu. The zombies we encountered along the way were indeed slow to react to the convoy, and 3 hours later, we arrived at the territory of Dongjiang without any major incidents. The safe zone is in Longwan City, and it's still 800 or 900 miles from here, I said, spreading out the map for them to see the route. Why was the safe zone built in Longwan? Why not just build it in the provincial capital? Someone wondered. I explained, because places like Longwan were built for national defense construction in our country a long time ago. They have oil refineries, steel mills, and cement factories, all of which are important resources for resuming production and providing military supplies. They listened with skepticism. Many young people had never heard the term national defense construction, but the slightly older team leader nodded slightly. There will be more zombies ahead. I suggest we check the vehicles first, or we'll be in danger if they break down, I continued. The team leader took my advice. He arranged for some people to check the vehicles while others went to look for food. After a quick meal, the convoy continued on its way, and the number of zombies on the road indeed increased. The rain also grew heavier, and the zombie blood smeared on the vehicles had been washed away. The zombies began to attack us, and we had to fight back when we couldn't avoid them. Under such circumstances, people kept getting injured and infected. When we were 100 miles away from Longwan City, there were only 19 of us left out of the original 27. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't have lost so many people, someone said, unable to bear it and blaming me. Song Yuan stood in front of me and said angrily, if it weren't for us telling you about the safe zone, your fate in that small village would also be death. You want to live but don't want to pay the price. There's no such good thing in the world. Seeing that they were about to fight, the team leader stopped those people. Enough, it's useless to say more now. If we don't see the safe zone when we get to Longwan, then we'll settle this account. The convoy continued forward, and the weather was gloomy with poor visibility, but I was becoming more and more familiar with the surrounding environment. We're almost at the safe zone, only about half an hour away, my voice trembled. Mom, will we see Dad soon? Dudu asked quietly. I nodded, yes, we'll see him soon. Just as I finished speaking, the team leader slammed on the brakes. I looked up and saw hundreds of zombies in front of us, standing in the rain with their grey-white eyes coldly staring at us. Retreat, retreat now, the team leader shouted. But it was too late, zombies surrounded us from all directions. I was not willing to die here, and I glanced around to see a 3-story building nearby. Get out of the car, go upstairs to defend, we have guns, and the safe zone will come to save us when they hear the gunshots. I opened the car door and was the first to jump out with Dudu in my arms, and the others also got out of the car, firing back as they retreated. The zombies surged over like a tide, and we fled into the building, barricading the door with shovels and then moving all the furniture to firmly block the door. Everyone gathered on the 3rd floor and fired at the zombies below from the windows, but the zombies would only die if they were hit in the head, and such blind firing didn't have much effect. Song Yuan and Zhong Yu poured the remaining gasoline down and set it on fire, burning the zombies. But because of the rain, the flames gradually went out, turning into an irritating smell of burnt flesh. The door on the first floor was broken open by the zombies, followed by the second floor. We were defending on the third floor, with the sound of zombies right by our ears, and we were all leaning against the last door. I prayed to God, praying that the security personnel of the safe zone could hear our gunfire, praying that Lu Zheng would come to our side quickly. Time seemed to have stopped, and everything was slowly stretching out. Everyone seemed to have entered a long, dark tunnel, not knowing when they would see the light again. Gradually, I seemed to hear the sound of a helicopter, but it also sounded like thunder. I wasn't quite sure. Do you guys hear the sound of a plane? I asked. Everyone fell silent and listened attentively. The rumbling sound grew closer, and before we could confirm, we saw tongues of fire angrily flickering outside the window. The zombies downstairs were being torn apart. It's an armed helicopter, 3 in total. There really is a safe zone here. We're saved. Some people started crying, tears of overwhelming joy at being reborn. The helicopters circled over and over, bullets passing through the horde of zombies, who fell in large numbers. Combat vehicles stopped downstairs, and gunfire rang out densely. Fully armed combat personnel approached step by step, and in the face of this absolute firepower coverage, the remaining zombies were quickly cleared up. The door was opened, and the combat personnel entered with their guns at the ready to kill anyone among us who was infected without any mercy. They all wore black masks on their faces, revealing only sharp eyes like eagles. But even with such tight wrapping, I still recognized that pair of familiar eyes at a glance. Lu Zheng, I called out to him, and then everything went black as I fell. I felt my body becoming very light, like a cloud floating up to the sky, with golden light shining down on me from above, warmly making me want to sleep. Floating halfway, I suddenly heard Dudu crying below. I immediately looked down and saw another me on the ground. The me on the ground had her eyes closed, pale, held in Lu Zheng's arms, with Dudu crying beside her, my mother-in-law at a loss, and Song Yuan trying to press the point between my chin and nose. I finally realized that my soul had left my body. Am I going to die? No, I can't die. I've survived the anxious seasons, traveled through thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, and on the 355th day of the apocalypse, I arrived here with my family, 3 months earlier than in the last life, to reunite with Lu Zheng. I can't die like this. Moreover, I haven't told Lu Zheng about the zombie tide. So I struggled to dive back into Lu Zheng's arms, wanting to return to my body. When I woke up again, I was in a white hospital room, with Lu Zheng sitting beside me, adjusting the 4. Seeing that I was awake, he reached out and touched my forehead. You're awake, are you still feeling unwell anywhere? Where are Mom and Dudu? What happened to me? They just left to rest. You have severe anemia, sleep some more. The doctor said you haven't had a good sleep for a long time. The doctor was right. In the last life and this life after being reborn, I never had a peaceful night's sleep. The slightest noise, even just a gust of wind, could wake me up. Go ahead and get busy, I said, knowing he had a great responsibility and didn't want to waste his time. He held my hand. You were having a nightmare while you were unconscious. Let me stay with you for a while. I stared at him, recalling that in the last life, we lived here for almost a year, but because we lost our family and children, we were usually silent and rarely spoke, and there were few moments like this. Even if we wanted to have another child later, it was aborted halfway because of too much sadness. It was not just us, but most other couples were also like this, immersed in a sadness that could not be dissolved. Feeling the warmth of his palm, I said, Lu Zheng, I made it. What made it? He asked. I replied, when we got married, I said to you, you are committed to the country, and I am committed to you. I will take care of our little family. Now I have done it. He nodded and tucked the corner of the blanket for me. Thank you. I fell asleep peacefully, vaguely hearing him say, Song Lan, thank you for saving me too. I slept soundly for 12 hours without having any more nightmares. After waking up, Lu Zheng and I went to the rest area to meet my mother-in-law and the others. The rest area was inhabited by survivors, with about 10,000 people now. Song Yuan was in the male rest area. He and the team leader had already signed up as volunteers on the spot and are currently responsible for the logistics work in the safe zone. After charging my phone, I turned it back on and looked at the messages I had sent to Lu Zheng at that time. From now on, I will work hard to change the outcome of the last life. Lu Zheng, I have been reborn. I directly told him, handing him my phone, these are the messages I sent to you before the end of the world. I knew all this would happen, so I was able to prepare for survival. I also knew that a safe zone would be built in Longwen, so I came here. On March 17th next year, this safe zone will be attacked by a zombie tide, and the entire safe zone will fall. Lu Zheng took the phone with a serious expression, then looked at me professionally. Song Lan, is the virus related to you? What organization are you from? His reaction was expected. If he easily believed it, it would be abnormal. Lu Zheng, you were injured in a battle with zombies once, and you thought you were infected with the virus, so you locked yourself up, but it turned out to be just an ordinary injury. This was something he told me in the last life. He said he had not told anyone except me. Lu Zheng's eyes showed surprise. Obviously, he had not told anyone else in this life either. You said you saved a child like Dudu and helped her find her parents. When you saw their family reunited, you secretly shed tears. I told him about the things of the last life one by one, and my mother-in-law also swore that I was a good person and definitely not a bad element. Lu Zheng was silent for a while. Our current outer defense can withstand missile attacks, and we have satellite monitoring of the direction of large zombie groups. According to reason, the situation you said would not happen. I shook my head. It's not enough, far from enough. There are too many of them, and a week before the zombie tide comes, our monitoring satellite was hit by a foreign star chain. Songlan, you are too tired, don't think too much. You are safe now. Like my father, Lu Zheng did not believe in rebirth. He thought it was the mental tension of the year that made me have hallucinations. I looked at him seriously. This is not my illusion, it's all true. You can choose not to believe me now, but on the day the star chain hits the satellite, you must make the safe zone be prepared and absolutely cannot leave. Then I didn't say anything more, because my first plan was to plant a seed in Lu Zheng's heart. Okay, I promise. Lu Zheng agreed, but I knew he was just trying to make me feel at ease. On the 365th day of the end of the world, I became a registrar in the safe zone. Now there are more and more survivors coming to the safe zone. I have seen many people I knew in the last life. Although they don't recognize me, when I see them standing in front of me again, I feel that this life is worth it. Song Yuan occasionally came to see me. He majored in industrial direction in university and was transferred from the logistics department to the weapons production department, which is also half a professional match. I finally got in touch with my parents, and they were crying and laughing when they knew we were still alive. My mother told me that half a month after the end of the world, they modified the car to come to us, but they were stopped by the village secretary of the hometown with a group of young people, so they didn't succeed. If the zombie tide here can't be stopped, the safe zone where my parents are might also be in danger. I repeatedly warned them to be vigilant. Although the safe zone now allocates everything, I still keep the habit of hoarding supplies, and even dig a basement at home, to be prepared for any eventuality. Lu Zheng didn't say anything when he came back and saw it. A few days later, I heard that the safe zone was going to start building an underground shelter, and it was Lu Zheng who suggested it. He has always been like this, not talking much, just doing. I know that the seed I planted has successfully taken root in his heart. Soon, I also met Zhong Yu and the team leader. Zhong Yu went to the oil refinery, and the team leader and others joined the city defense camp. It is said that they have killed many zombies and are highly valued. Sis, I'm really sorry for that time, and I hope you can forgive me, the team leader apologized. It's okay, it's all in the past, I didn't care about it, because I wanted to use them to carry out the second step of my plan. I suggested to them to clean and widen the moat around the city to store water. If a large number of zombies come, this can slow down the speed of the zombie attack on the city to some extent. The team leader may be because of his guilt to me, or maybe he thinks this idea is useful, and soon took the city defense camp to start action. Because of my outstanding performance at work, I was elected as the main person in charge of the logistics department of the safe zone, leading women and children to carry out production and life. I took advantage of this convenience and often organized everyone to weed and thicken the city walls, leaving no safety hazards. When I stood on the city wall and looked out at the world, I saw a desolate scene. May everything grow next year. The 410th day of the end of the world is my 30th birthday. There is no cake in the safe zone. My mother-in-law cooked me a long-life noodle with eggs, Song Yuan got 2 cans of beef, and Dudu drew a picture. Lu Zheng just forgot. He has been busy rescuing survivors, and we can only meet once every 3 or 4 days. Sorry, I'll make it up to you after I'm busy, Lu Zheng apologized. I don't care, being with my family is the best gift I want. The 448th day of the end of the world, the safe zone brought back a few zombies to the laboratory, and I know that this experiment will fail again. Since the beginning of the end of the world's top virus experts have been developing a vaccine, but the progress has not been very smooth. The safe zone began to encourage people to have children, because there is hope as long as there are people. In the last life, I didn't succeed with Lu Zheng because of my mental state, and I still refused in this life. I won't conceive a life before the zombie tide crisis is lifted. When Song Yuan came to see me on his day off, he told me that because of the success of our safe zone, countries around the world are following suit. They also take the heavy industrial area as the center to establish a safe zone to shelter survivors, and the effect is significant. The world is slowly stabilizing, and various countries are beginning to share resources and cooperate. This extreme virus infection has stopped the war and dispute, and people are beginning to re-examine the world. The 540th day of the end of the world, life in our safe zone has become mature. Schools in the safe zone have been re-established, and children have started to continue learning. Dudu entered the kindergarten, and my mother-in-law also found a job as a caregiver in the kindergarten, and everything is back on track. On the 647th day of the apocalypse, New Year's Day arrived. There are 65 days left until the March 17th zombie tide. That day, the safe zone set off fireworks to celebrate the new year, and the sadness of the past year was temporarily forgotten in the fireworks. Many people closed their eyes and made silent wishes, and I did the same, praying for peace. But from that day on, I started to suffer from insomnia again. Although Lu Zheng now comes back every night, I still find it hard to sleep. When I close my eyes, all I can see are scenes of zombies biting me. Sometimes I wake up from my dreams, covered in cold sweat. Lu Zheng poured me some hot water. Go to the hospital tomorrow and get some tranquilizers. This is a problem of the heart, and there is no cure for it. If the safe zone is safe and sound after March 17th, my problem will be cured immediately. On the 698th day of the apocalypse, there are 7 days left until the zombie tide. In the middle of the night, Lu Zhang received a phone call. The person on the other end was urgently saying something, and he immediately sat up in bed. After hanging up the phone, he looked at me. Our satellite has been destroyed. I responded calmly, but my body was still trembling. He lit a cigarette but didn't smoke it. When did the zombie tide arrive on March 17th? An hour after you left, probably around 10 in the morning. From which direction did it come? From all directions. He extinguished the cigarette. You sleep, I'm going to the command center. He didn't come back for 5 days after he left. I don't know how he explained it to the command center, but the next morning, 4 or 5 planes left the safe zone for reconnaissance. At noon, dozens of bombers carrying a large number of incendiary bombs and bombs took off and kept going back and forth. With such a large-scale cleanup, the zombie tide may not form, and the crisis may be resolved like this. On the 5th day, the safe zone notified all the elderly, weak, women, and children to enter the underground defense shelter, and other young and strong people were on standby. Lu Zhang came back that day and told me that although 3 days of bombing had cleaned up a lot, the speed at which the zombies gathered was too fast, and some would still arrive at the Longwan safe zone. How many are there? I asked him. He looked relaxed. Not many, don't worry. After having dinner together in the evening, Dudu nestled in Lu Zhang's arms and asked him to tell a story. Lu Zhang held her and told stories for a full hour until the little girl fell asleep in his arms. He then gently picked up the child and put her to bed with a blanket. My mother-in-law and I were packing things to go to the defense shelter, and Song Yuan brought a bunch of food over and then hurried back to work. I saw him off at the door, and when we got to the alley, he turned his head and smiled at me. Sis, there's your favorite coconut candy in that red bag. I've saved up points for a long time to buy it for you. Don't forget to eat it. I know, be careful on the road. I watched him walk through the long alley and disappear into the night. At night, the bright moon was like water. Lu Zheng was about to go to the city defense. As he was leaving, he suddenly hugged me gently. Song Lan, I am fortunate to have met you in my life, thank you. He is a reserved and calm person and rarely has such a tender moment. I suddenly realized that both he and Song Yuan were saying goodbye to me, and things might be more serious than I thought. In the last life zombie tide, if Lu Zheng and the others were in the safe zone at that time, they could have stopped the tide with their strength. Now, judging by the scale of the bombing in the past 3 days, the zombies from the last life should have been cleaned up almost completely, but now Lu Zheng is so solemn. Could it be that the scale of this life's zombie tide is much larger than the last life? I thought of the delayed rainy season and the early arrival of the blizzard last year. Did many things start to change at that time? I feel like I made a mistake. I should have taken Lu Zheng away as soon as I arrived at the safe zone, and then our family could have gone to my parents' place or back to our home. We could have grown vegetables on the terrace, and we could even grow rice and wheat, raise some chickens and ducks, and live quietly. I was too greedy and wanted to save everyone. You must come back. I have exhausted all my strength in 2 lives to come to you. You can't let me down like this. I hugged him tightly, tears streaming down my face. He moved his lips but didn't say anything, just looked at me deeply, and finally kissed me lightly on the lips and turned to leave. I know, he never makes promises he can't keep. March 17th. The 705th day of the apocalypse. My mother-in-law, Dudu, and I, along with tens of thousands of women and children, hid in the underground shelter. Everyone's eyes were filled with worry. I, along with the volunteers, were calming everyone's emotions. I told them that the supplies in the underground shelter were sufficient and could last for a year. Our moat was wide and deep, making it difficult for zombies to come over. Even if they did, our city walls were strong enough, and we had tens of thousands of fearless warriors. At 10 o'clock in the morning, The sound of bombings and gunfire came from the ground. The zombie tide had arrived. Everyone was praying silently, praying that the safe zone could survive the disaster and that those fighting on the ground could survive. I also closed my eyes to pray, and when I opened them, a colorful butterfly perched on my hand. I looked at it and suddenly realized that I had already changed the world. At this time in the last life, many people and I had already been bitten to death, but now we are all still alive. Lu Zheng, who should have left the safe zone with people, is here fighting with his comrades. The apocalypse is changing the environment, and I am also changing the apocalypse. Although I am as weak as a butterfly, the wings I flap have ultimately caused this violent tornado. I listened to the sounds outside. The gunfire and artillery were very intense. Since the gunfire has not stopped, it means that human strength is still strong and has not been suppressed by the zombies. Everyone dared not sleep, holding weapons tightly, ready to fight at any time. On the third day, there was a loud noise from the ground, and the earth shook, as if the wall had collapsed. I couldn't help but recall the miserable situation after the wall collapsed in the last life. In less than half a day, the safe zone fell, and wherever the zombies went, there was no sign of life. Time passed second by second, and there were no zombies coming here except for the earth-shaking gunfire and artillery. The battle lasted until dawn on the fourth day before it weakened and became incredibly quiet. The shelter was also silent. Everyone widened their eyes, not knowing whether the zombies had won or the humans had eliminated the zombies. My heart was beating violently, and even Dudu felt it. Mom, your heart is beating so fast, Dudu said. My mother-in-law also held my hand. Lan, it's okay, no matter what, we are together. Even if it's the road to the netherworld, we will go together. I hugged them tightly and didn't know how long it took before the steel door of the shelter made a mellow sound. The door was opened, and a team of exhausted fighters appeared in front of us. The crisis has been resolved, everyone go home. The crowd became excited, packing up and heading out, and we also followed the crowd out of the shelter. At this moment, the sky was still dark, and the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder and burnt flesh. As the breeze blew, the air gradually became clear. Child, do you know about the casualties? My son's name is Ju Kai, have you seen him? An old man asked a fighter. The man replied, I don't know either, old man, you go home and wait for the news. After hearing this, I quickly ran towards the direction of the defense wall. The tall defense wall stood unbroken, but I knew that holding this wall must have come at a cost. That person must know the casualties, he just didn't want to say it. And in the battle with the zombies, there are no injuries, only deaths. I found Song Yuan by the wall. He was covered in dust and slumped on an ammunition box. His clothes were torn and blood-soaked, looking like he had taken quite a few falls. When he saw me, he smiled and said, Sis, can you believe I moved over 500 boxes of ammunition in these days? I, who can't run 1,500 meters, actually moved so much ammunition. Am I not awesome? Tears streamed down my face as I peeled a piece of coconut candy he had given me and put it in his mouth. Yes, you are the most awesome. This person who had called me sis for 23 years had used up all his points to exchange for food for me that day, and then prepared to face death. He chewed the candy. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine after a rest. You go find your husband. Where is Lu Zheng? Song Yuan pointed ahead. The last time I saw him was in that direction. I looked up and saw a section of the city wall not far away had collapsed, with many people lying on the ground. When I approached, I saw that the vast majority were the bodies of zombies, and there were also many combat personnel. I was familiar with their clothes and equipment. They were from Lu Zheng's elite team. They were always in the most dangerous places, in the last life and in this life. I walked forward slowly, not knowing if it would be a reunion and then separation with him in this life. The wind blew past my ears, and I stepped on the ruins, moving forward step by step, not knowing what awaited me. Suddenly, a hand grabbed me, and a hoarse voice sounded beside me. Don't go over there, it's a restricted area. I was stunned and slowly turned around. The sun had already risen in the east, and the warm sunlight was inch by inch illuminating the earth. In the backlight, Lu Zheng stood in front of me, his eyes were bloodshot, and there was short blue stubble on his chin. He was still alive, covered in smoke and dust. Did we win? I asked him. He nodded and rested his chin on my forehead. Yes, we won. Good. I hugged him tightly. In my dim tears, I saw the butterfly from before fly over and perch on his shoulder patch, circled around me for a moment, and then drifted away with the wind. The storm caused by the butterfly has stopped, and my despair, worry, and struggle in these two lives finally ended at this moment. This 3-day and 3-night war was later called the Longwen Defense Battle by later generations. On the night of the end of the defense battle, the virus expert group in Longwen announced that the antiviral vaccine had achieved preliminary success. As long as the vaccine is injected, humans will no longer be infected after being bitten by zombies. It was only then that I realized that in the last life, We were just one step away from success. This year, other safe zones have also encountered zombie tides, but with the protection of the vaccine and the experience of Longwan, the safe zones have all passed safely. Other countries have also encountered zombie sieges, and our country has generously shared its experience. On the 812th day of the apocalypse, the International Virus Expert Group developed a reagent that kills the zombie virus, and humanity sounded the horn of counterattack. On the 1040th day of the apocalypse, humanity finally won the final victory. When the gates of the safe zone finally opened, I walked out of the place that had protected us for 2 years with others. We stood under the vast sky, seeing the plants thriving and the flowers blooming brilliantly, and the world was regaining its vitality. The wish I made standing on the city wall last year has now come true. Mom, I want to go play with Xianxian and the others over there. Dudu is now 8 years old and has many good friends. I nodded. Go ahead. Lanlan, I'm going to train first. If you want to go back and rest, call me, and I'll pick you up. My mother-in-law joined the square dance team this year, and recently they have been rushing to train, determined to win first place in the competition. Song Yuan is not with us much now, he has a girlfriend, and the couple is now as sweet as honey, planning to get married. As for Lu Zheng, he is still very busy, and I haven't seen him for almost a month. As for me, I touched my bulging belly, already 5 months pregnant. The little guy is a bit naughty, kicking me from time to time. I found a place to sit and watched Dudu play, and after a while, Lu Zheng called. What are you doing? He asked. Accompanying Dudu. How about you? Turn around. I was stunned and looked back to see him standing not far away in ordinary clothes, not knowing when he had come back. He came over and sat down next to me, bringing a bag of my favorite sugar chestnuts. He peeled a sugar chestnut for me, and I took a bite, as sweet as before the apocalypse. I didn't ask him how long he would stay this time, because this moment was like Jiu Cheng's poem, the grass is binding its seeds, the wind is shaking its leaves, none of us spoke, enjoying the leisurely and beautiful time. Dad, you're back. Dudu ran over and threw herself into his arms and acted coquettishly. Mom and Dad, Xianxian said there is a river here, and there are many beautiful stones by the river. Shall we go and pick up stones? Okay, let's go now. Lu Zheng held Dudu with one hand and me with the other. Along the way, there were many 4-member families like us, and the laughter filled the riverbank full of blooming flowers. The sadness of the past has gone, and each of us is trying to come out of it, actively creating a new life.